So Rian Johnson's in the news again because he's got this movie Knives Out, which sounds terrible from everything that I've been reading about it, which is why I pulled this article up real quick before we get to the topic. You can see from the headline right there what what this movie's about. I'm not interested in it. I don't really like him. I think he's kind of I think he's got a big ego, and he thinks that he's God's gift to Star Wars, that he's going to be remembered as the greatest Star Wars director of all time. I really do think that. And it's starting to show itself when you go and you see things like this. So The Last Jedi's Rian Johnson remembers being originally disappointed with Empire Strikes Back. Now, this comes from an interview that he did with another outlet, which I'm not going to read because it was mostly about Knives Out. This article takes the good stuff out and goes over it. And he's trying to compare himself, or he's trying to compare The Last Jedi in some ways to The Empire Strikes Back by saying, well, people remember The Empire Strikes Back fondly. It only took them a couple of years. So let's go over this. It's not a long article, but it'll be fun to go through. So today, it is largely agreed upon that the best Star Wars movie of the original trilogy and possibly the best Star Wars movie to date is The Empire Strikes Back. Totally agree with that. I think most people totally agree with that. It's the best one. It seems most people feel this way, but the fact is that it wasn't always the case. At the time, The Empire Strikes Back wasn't universally adored, and Star Wars, The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson remembers being disappointed by it when first seeing it as a child. While the director of The Last Jedi says he may have been taken to see Star Wars A New Hope in theaters, he tells Uprocks the first Star Wars movie he remembers seeing was The Empire Strikes Back, and he didn't love it. Well, I mean, did anybody like that movie? I mean, it was a good movie, but you think, like you did, imagine the first time you saw that movie. I would imagine you'd be kind of bummed. Like it does take time to appreciate a movie like that. It really does. However, I can even counter that though, because I'm going to be honest here. The Marvel comic movies, the MCU, at least right now, are this generation's Star Wars. This generation of kids who are going to grow up. This is their Star Wars. It really is. Star Wars' popularity is sinking. Kids don't like it. It's true. Kids just aren't into it. And why would they be? The new movies haven't been that amazing. Force Awakens, you went into that movie with nostalgia blinders on. And it's fine. In fact, I don't even think it's a terrible movie. Is it great? No. Is it an okay movie? Yeah. But you think about what came before that. You had the prequels, which were okay in some ways. They didn't really grab anybody like the original trilogy did. They really didn't. Everybody wanted the sequel to the original trilogy. You know, we waited so long in between those two trilogies. The hype just could never be there anyway for those movies. And then we get to The Force Awakens, and, you know, we finally get Han Solo back and, you know, a post-Jedi movie. So everyone was excited. Then The Last Jedi comes, and man, what a dumpster fire that movie is. I don't even want to get into The Last Jedi and why the reasons and what it is. I think you could see it in that first article I showed of how political Rian Johnson is, because there was a lot of stuff like that in the movie. I pointed this out so many times. The first thing I noticed in the movie was that all the leaders were whammon, and that all of the assistants, from what I remember, I'd have to go back and watch it, but I distinctly remember all of the assistants being like men in tight little suits with clipboards, like galactic keyboard or galactic computer notepads and stuff, like tablets, following them around. I'm like, okay. And then you can even criticize dumb things in the movie, like the fuel thing. That was incredibly stupid. How much fuel does it take to do a light speed jump? But not even just that. The bombers. Okay, the bombers, when they go over the other ships, why is gravity all of a sudden working in space? They wouldn't drop. They would still float when you release them. There's just so many stupid things in that movie that just don't make sense. So you can do a lot of critiquing on that movie that even comes out of the political area. You can just critique it on how stupid it is. But anyway, let's go back to my Marvel point real quick because I ran off for a second. But in the Marvel stuff, you had Infinity War and Endgame. In some respects, maybe not, story and stuff, they kind of followed The Empire Strikes Back and The Last Jedi in this aspect. Infinity War got really dark at the end. Half of the heroes are gone. You're left with only a couple of you got all the key players still there from the original Avengers. And it was dark. But I don't remember people walking out of that movie people were sad, but for the most part, people were pretty hyped about that movie and how good it was. And then Endgame came, and that is your Last Jedi. You have the big win, and the heroes move on. So in that regard, they're kind of similar. Now, I don't remember people, being too bummed out. But in fairness, we didn't have to wait 3 years to see what happened. We only had to wait like a year. Now, if you didn't know, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, you had to wait like 3 years to find out what happened. But I'm just saying, I don't remember most people being like, oh, that Endgame stunk because everyone got taken out. For the most part, people were like, wow, that was a great movie. There's no way to really know, though, if we can compare that directly to what people were thinking about Empire Strikes Back, because we didn't have the internet back then. So we can't go check. We can't go see and compare, really. All we can do is look at critics. And we can't really do that favorably because I would imagine critics back in the time of The Empire Strikes Back were much better at their jobs than these activist critics that we have now. It's a little bit different. And all of them loved The Last Jedi. I think it's like sitting at like almost 100% fresh, which really tells you how garbage these metrics are. Whereas the audience reactions aren't that strong for that movie. So continuing on, that's the thing. But as a kid, I distinctly remember being disappointed by The Empire Strikes Back. I think my dad took me when I was really young to see A New Hope. Rian Johnson was hardly alone in this. If you look at reactions from fans and critics in 1980, while most have good things to say about it, few, if any, are heaping praise onto it in a major way. I think a lot of people had issues with places the plot went and the whole I am your father thing. Now, here's the thing. They're getting reactions as the movie released. There's no way to really gauge, people's reactions to that movie over time. Because you're talking about the 1980s. When did the internet really start moving? That's, when we could finally go back and look at what people's reactions were. Before that, we have fan letters, fan mail, and magazines, interviews with people. There was no national poll, Pew research on how people thought about The Empire Strikes Back. As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, but, it's totally different now than it was back then. It really is. So there's no way to really 100% say that. I don't doubt that people were bummed after they left that movie, though. I mean, they make a good point right here. This is especially unsurprising for those of us who first saw the movie as kids. By the end of Empire Strikes Back, 2 of our major heroes have essentially been beaten. Han Solo was frozen and sent to Jabba the Hutt. Luke Skywalker had lost his hand, and his world had turned upside down by the revelation that his greatest enemy is his father. So, yeah, that's true. But like I said, for the most part, I remember everybody walking out of Endgame like, that was awesome. So it's hard to say. I feel like there's a lot of defending for Last Jedi. The media just goes all out for that movie. It's crazy. It's the same thing with Captain Marvel, too. The media went hard for Captain Marvel. They go hard for Last Jedi. It's like, I can't believe it failed. Rian Johnson, you can tell, this has smashed the man's ego. And he backlashes on fans. You see him going there and watching, commenting on Ethan Van Sciver's thread saying I can't hear you, Ethan. The guy wanted to be hailed as like the greatest Star Wars guy ever. And he ended up just kind of looking like a fool. Most of the hardcore fans don't like him. The community and the fan base is split over the movie. I would say not even split. I would say 75-25 if I had to guess. As a kid, you're going to react to these story beats much more directly. 7-year-old Rian Johnson isn't thinking about how these decisions are going to be good for the larger trilogy, or how a 3-act structure always leads to an all is lost moment. He's just thinking about how his heroes have been beaten, and that stinks. But here's the thing. Didn't you admit a couple of times that you threw out the plans and just did your own thing? Like, I'm just going to do my own movie. I mean, from what I remember, you didn't really even think about the 3-act structure when you made your movie. You just kind of did what you wanted to do, which is obvious to anybody that watched it. Second off, there's not many 7-year-olds that went to watch the Star Wars movie. Most of them were grown men and older boys. Star Wars doesn't capture the same magic it had before, which is part of its problem. You see that in toy stores with the toys not going anywhere. I mean, there's plenty of videos out there showing you that they're on clearance. Stores like Target and Walmart and stuff are like kind of clearing the toys out, giving them clearance. They're just not moving that much because no one wants Battle Armor Rose Tico. No one wants 80-year-old Leia. No one wants defeated Luke coming with his own milk jug bottle full of green milk. No one wants those characters. Nobody. And it shows because they're not selling. The merchandise has been down for a long time. This is turning out to be a bad investment for Disney. It really is. And it's their own fault. They had such an easy thing they could have done. They could have just made, a trilogy focusing on Luke and made tons of money. And then find a way to close it off, introduce some new characters along the way, hand off the baton by the third one, and call it a day. But that wouldn't make any sense in today's era of inclusivity. Got to get all them crusty old white mans out of there, prop up the whammon, get all them check boxes hit. Then we'll craft a story. Then we'll get a story going. But let's make sure we get these elements in first. So, talks about how the Empire Strikes Back grew on him right here. On the other hand, Star Wars Return of the Jedi eventually sees the good guys win out and the Empire is defeated. So as kid Rian Johnson said, he loved that movie a lot more. Eventually, over time, Empire grew on him. Yeah, I remember, especially in the context of Return of the Jedi, which as a kid I adored. And so, yeah, I remember very vividly. But then Empire slowly became my favorite one. So is that what you're trying to say, Rian Johnson? You think The Last Jedi is going to grow on people?
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
This movie's not going to grow on anybody. I'm sure, the 9 people walking around your brand new Galaxy's Edge theme parks, I'm sure they're all having great conversations on how great The Last Jedi was. If you didn't get that, I'm pointing out that the popularity of Star Wars is incredibly down and will probably keep going down. They confirm in this that, his Star Wars trilogy is still coming. Well, it's not 100% confirmed. Rian Johnson says it's still going on. I don't think Disney has come out and said anything yet, but Kathleen Kennedy loves this guy. That's the same person who walked out in Force is Female shirts. Her entire writing staff is made up of pretty much, I think, 100% women. So if you can't see what they're trying to do with these movies, which is a huge mistake, there's nothing wrong with women liking Star Wars and wanting to watch the brand. That only helps it. But the major demographic for the franchise was always boys. And now you're saying we don't want that anymore. They're going to come anyway. Okay? I still think Rey could have been a good character. And that's another video in itself talking about how, she was done wrong. I mean, the fact that she got no real training and everything, and she can just fly every ship and everything, that's a whole nother video. But the fact is, The Last Jedi, not a good movie. Most people didn't like it. There's a couple people that did. And if you do like it, that's fine. You're allowed to like what you want to like. But for the majority, most of the hardcore fans don't seem to have cared for that movie. And there's no denying that Star Wars popularity is way, way down. The fact that the merchandise just is not going anywhere. It really says something. But Rian Johnson, take your big ego head down. Your Last Jedi movie is not going to be fondly remembered. You didn't have big moments in that movie like I Am Your Father. You blew that moment when you decided to say Rey's parents were trash nobodies and you killed Snoke at the beginning of the movie. That's kind of how you messed up. You also didn't bring Luke out. I mean, if you really want to take him out, you should have had him have a big duel or something. Instead, you have him throwing lightsabers and drinking cow milk. No one's going to finally remember this movie, pal. You keep telling yourself that, though. I can't wait for your trash trilogy to come out so I can trash on that all the time because, let's face it, the media is going to say it's the greatest thing ever. So, of course, they're going to be calling all the fans ismphobes, and it's going to provide a lot of great quality content for channels. So I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, what do you think in the comments? Did you love Last Jedi? Do you think it's going to be the next Empire Strikes Back like Rian Johnson thinks? Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you're still subscribed. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the notification bell. Check out the links in the description. Check out my Twitch, YellowFlash Comics. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.